In a world overflowing with information, many mistake knowledge for truth. But what if the pursuit of knowledge without wisdom is what leads us away from God instead of toward Him? In this powerful message, you'll discover the spiritual order God intended for His people, and why wisdom and revelation must come before knowledge. Let the Spirit guide you deeper into God's truth. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Notice something. Knowledge doesn't guarantee truth. That's why knowledge alone can deceive. It's just information. Without context, it can be dangerous. Think of a car. It's not just about driving it. The manual gives you context, what to do and what not to do. The same applies to Scripture. People often grab the Bible, read it, and run with it, without seeking the heart of the one who authored it. That's how people end up forming false doctrines and strange interpretations. Even groups like Freemasons use the Bible, yet they remain far from the truth. Why? Because they operate with knowledge, but without the context of the Creator. God never begins His relationship with us through knowledge. He begins with wisdom and revelation. That's why I personally don't believe in Bible study alone. Bible knowledge without prayer and the Spirit results in intellectual understanding, but not spiritual transformation. People can go to Bible college, graduate with theology degrees, but come out powerless. Why? Because they gained information, not impartation. They got facts, but not fire. When Satan came to Eve, he offered her knowledge. That's what led to the fall, the hunger for information, not for truth. Knowledge without God becomes dangerous. Jesus rebuked the religious scholars, saying, "Have you not read? God is not the God of the dead, but of the living." They had knowledge, but they didn't grasp the living context of what they read. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were alive in God's reality. The scholars missed it because they lacked revelation. The church today often repeats this error. People reject supernatural experiences because they've been told it's demonic to see the dead. Yet Moses and Elijah appeared to Jesus on the mountain. This shows that many doctrines today are built on assumption rather than revelation. The Apostle Paul said, "I determined to know nothing but Christ and Him crucified." Paul was one of the most learned men of his time, yet he counted his knowledge as loss after encountering Jesus. He realized knowledge without the Spirit is void of power. God prioritizes wisdom and revelation. Ephesians 1:17 says, "May God give you the spirit of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of Him." God doesn't give knowledge directly. He gives revelation so that knowledge has meaning. Why? Because knowledge alone can be corrupted. But when knowledge is birthed out of wisdom and revelation, it's anchored in truth. The problem isn't knowledge itself, it's the way it's pursued. God placed the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the garden, not to tempt, but to be approached with guidance. Adam and Eve went after it on their own, ignoring the tree of life, which represented God's Spirit. They chose knowledge for the soul, not life for the spirit. Jesus said, "The words I speak to you, they are spirit and life." That tree in the garden was to awaken their spirit, but they weren't ready. Their soul desired knowledge. The spirit desires God. Paul also said, "Eye has not seen, nor ear heard what God has prepared." But he didn't stop there. He added, "But God has revealed them to us by His Spirit." Revelation doesn't come from books. It comes from walking with the Spirit. Daniel didn't understand his visions until God sent Gabriel to explain them. Even the great prophets didn't begin with knowledge. They walked with God, then knowledge followed. Enoch walked with God and was no more. Abraham didn't read a Bible. Isaiah, Elijah, none of them did. They walked with God. That's how they knew His heart. Even mighty angels in heaven didn't know who could open the seals in Revelation. But the elders and living creatures did, because they lived near the Lamb. Power doesn't equal revelation. Proximity does. The seven spirits of God, listed in Isaiah 11, show the divine order. First comes the Spirit of the Lord, then wisdom and understanding. Only later do we see knowledge. If you chase knowledge first, you're out of order. Wisdom and understanding must come first. Daniel thanked God for giving him wisdom and might. Solomon asked for wisdom, and with it, knowledge followed. But even Solomon lacked revelation. That's why he brought false gods into Israel. He had wisdom, but not the full counsel of God. You may hear deep truths and feel convicted. That's not head knowledge. That's the Spirit imparting something. Real teaching makes you want to pray, seek Jesus, and walk with him. Power alone is not enough. Casting out demons without love, without wisdom, without fear of the Lord, it leads to pride. That's why many churches are full of deliverance, but no discipleship. When you pray, don't chase knowledge. Ask God for wisdom and understanding. When these are in place, knowledge will come naturally, and with it, true transformation. God's desire is not just to fill your mind, but to transform your life. Knowledge without wisdom leads to confusion, but wisdom with revelation leads to life. Don't seek to simply know, seek to walk with him. Ask the Lord today, give me the spirit of wisdom, understanding, and fear of you. That is the path to truth. That is the way of the Spirit. If this word touched you, don't just reflect, respond. Let it move you to prayer, to surrender, and to a deeper walk with Jesus.